in a silly mood this morning. This is a serious topic, though. This is serious. Lives can be changed with what I'm about to say. Lives.
Really?
Well, it depends on how much you have going on in your life, but if you're like me, hitting the ball straight makes your life a lot easier. Okay. You've probably heard me say the following about club face angles in the backswing to people. I refer to it if the chicken and the egg had a clear answer, if you knew for sure whether it was the chicken and the egg. A lot of things, if not most things, that go horribly wrong with people's ball flights, trying to play low handicap golf, have a lot to do with what the club face is doing on the way back, how your wrist angles are related to that, a little bit of your grip, and then how that club face makes transition and starts coming back to the ball. So more or less, if your club face is dynamically open, meaning relative to the arc of your swing, it's a little bit on the open side, versus someone who has it a little bit or a lot on the closed side, you would be amazed at how different of a motion you make, how different your body tries to compensate to make the ball go reasonably straight. What I notice after looking at hundreds of swings on high-speed cameras is that the number one priority for someone is to get that cleaned up. Before they worry about, I have people come in telling me they have been working on their early extension or they've been working on their ground forces. It's like, great, but that's really not the thing that would be your lowest hanging fruit by a long shot. A lot of things that people do in the downswing are related to trying to fix something to do with the club face. I want to show you the more common way that it's happening. It's not necessarily always the same, hey, my grip's really weak and I'm like fanning the face open. It's not really just that. You got to think about it, it's always got to be in relation to the arc of the swing. So even if someone's taking it up reasonably well to the top, it's just as important, if not more important, what's happening on the downswing. Is it open on the downswing is really, you have to get that part right, or the rest of it is just a complete struggle. The club face, for most of the people I see with this pattern it goes a little bit inward behind them, and a little bit, call it two-toe up, a little bit open. At the top, I see a lot of this. So you can actually see the underside of my hand. The wrist is actually rotated not enough back towards the camera. Okay. As good as I can do. So a different delivery, again, the main engine of all this is what the club face is doing. If the club face is dynamically open, if it's open relative to the arc, you're going to tend to see a couple things. You're going to tend to see a path that wants to get outside in. You're just trying to make it work. If the face is open, you need to cut across it to hit the ball on target, which we did. So this face was open, but swinging for me to the right allowed me to hit a shot back on line. That's basically what this relationship is. And you would see a lot more loft. So this is about 5 degrees more loft at impact than I had with the more closed face. It's actually too much. So you're not really getting any shaft lean because the way that we square the face is adding loft. So you got it square by more or less, call it flipping the wrist on a vertical way to get the face back to square. A little on the spinny and high side. You're not going to hit it quite as far as you could. You're not compressing the ball as much because it's higher loft. Not bad, but it's a little bit, call it vertical relative to my spine angle. So it's a tiny bit open. At the top, like we talked about, you really can't see any of the logo of the grip here. The butt end of the club is really getting pointed sort of across me, not as much down the line. The face is quite open. As I transition, it's a little open about here. Now, in order to get this to square, because the face is quite open, what you'll see is that this wrist here, which is flat, is going to have to create angle. It's going to have to bend on that plane to get the head moving this way. Okay, so the easy points to control, like we talked about, are the face a little bit more down to the ground, so not rotating the face as much. Keep it what feels like pointing at the ball for as long as possible. Glove logo, a little bit more to the camera, will produce a more closed face at the top. Those are the easy things. Make sure your grip is not too weak or something. But really what you have to learn to produce is the closing sort of twisting force in the downswing. So if you look at recent Masters champion Rory McIlroy, for example, if you look at his follow through, you will notice that even by like just past hip high, you're already able to sort of see the fingers of the glove hand so that the club is completely released. This arm is overtaking this arm and it's moving through this way. Now, you're seeing the result of something. So The reason that most amateurs do not look like this in the follow through, and they tend to hit the ball with a little bit of a weaker fade on average, is that they're not producing the force here at the top of swing in transition that allows the club to be released this way on the way through. The easiest way to feel that is this. If I take the club up to the top in a reasonable fashion so it's not open, I need to feel like the club is twisting. Can you get in there good? You see that? So I'm taking the grip and I'm turning it with both hands, or whatever hand you can feel better. As I twist the club, it's doing three things as long as I continue the twisting motion all the way to the finish. So it's producing some flexion of the wrist. It's producing a lot of rotation of the wrist. So both of those things are going to help reduce the loft and square the face. So it's a pretty common misconception. People are trying to compress the ball and generate leg. They're often really pulling the grip this way. You can see my wrists are not rotating, they're not flexing, and they're not unhinging. So I want to produce a force from the top that flexes the wrist, rotates the wrist, and actually lets the club begin to unhinge. And I'm continuing that force all the way through. Better. I can't imagine a more common question I've been asked than what does the release feel like? What is it? What do I do? And again, it's this feeling where I get, if you can imagine this grip here, I'm using both hands to sort of twist it like a motorcycle handle. But the key is not to just go, okay, I twisted it, I'm good to go. If you look at wrist data from good players, they're actually applying that force. I'm twisting it, I'm still twisting it, still twisting it. This is an exaggeration, but I want to picture impact occurring this way. So the face is actually like looking back at me. By the time I get through, like we talked about, the club is resetting. And you can see the fingers of my glove hand all the way on the forward side as well. So I'm going to do it too much. So the ball should actually curve too far to the right. This would be a good drill. Yeah, that's a much better attempt. Okay, let's go look at that. The open face swing from the beginning, you can see was a little bit outside in. It was a little bit high loft. When we produce the twisting force of the grip, what will happen is the face will start to be closed relative to the path, not open. The path will start to react by being inside out now. That wrist motion is also producing shaft leans. I'm imagining I'm applying this twisting force of the grip, kind of like a motorcycle handle, but I'm producing it from here all the way through the downswing. I'm even feeling it in the follow through. What I want to see roughly when I kind of draw this type of line is, does the face at an earlier time start to get pretty square to that arc? This person has a lot less work to do to hit the ball on line or even draw it than someone who has the face more in that orientation and they have to flip at it. This I can just continue rotating. You can see there's plenty of shaft lean here. And then watch the hands here. What you're noticing is you can actually start to see a little bit of the fingers of my glove hand as the club is releasing through. So when I'm doing this with someone in the hitting bay, I would put my hand on the grip here and I would apply the twisting force, helping them feel it in the lead wrist. Let them take a couple practice swings, exaggerating as much as they can. This little device is helpful if someone is really used to swinging outside in. Once they start getting the face rotating that way and twisting that way, they will start hitting a lot of pull, call it pull, draw, pull, draw, pull, draw. A little bit of a visual here to get the club to feel like it's approaching more from behind my body as it's closing and travel more out away from me. The head I want to feel like it's traveling outward, but the club face, if anything, I want pointed more back at me. So when I visualize, when I try to do the drill, I'm going to do it, always try to do it way too much. Don't try to hit perfect shots. You're trying to change your pattern. And I would push myself by trying to produce reps with the 7-iron that are, if anything, feel like too much. So I'm looking for every single ball to have curve. And for me, because my natural pattern is inside out, this is not something that I'm going to need help with, but doing the drill, you'll see I'm producing an extreme inside out pattern, a really closed, really hooded face, strong draw pattern. I would do most of the work with a 7-iron. You can even hit a few wedges this way. You finish your sessions with a few driver. Try to put forth as much of that effort as you can. Priority 1, get the ball to have draw spin, get draw curvature. Let the path sort of react to the club face and the closure later. Don't pursue an inside-out path unless you've got the face in a position to do so. This is a pattern of someone who has the face dynamically a little bit too closed. The ball is rather shapely. Okay, shall we? A path that gets a little bit too inside out, this is pretty common. You see a face angle relative to the path that's kind of too close. If this number is 6, this number needs to be closer to 3 or 4. Not exactly half, but more like 60-ish to 70% of this number. So if this said 4 or 3.5, for example, roughly, that ball wouldn't really have overdrawn almost at all. You'll also tend to see this person have a very shallow angle of attack. I mean, this isn't terrible, but it's a lot shallower than I would like to be. Higher initial launch angle with not much spin. So again, it's not that you can't play good golf this way, but if you are producing this pattern, which I am with a 7-iron, you can imagine by the time you get to a driver, it's going to be pretty problematic. Whatever you're doing is going to show itself the most in the driver. Whatever flaws you have, whatever tendencies you have, the driver will expose you rather sharply. And not everyone wants to be exposed. So speaking of being exposed, here I am being exposed in high frame rate. In my case, the club face is not like horribly closed here. It's not. It's not really that far off of like what my spine angle would be. I do see people that have the club face more in this orientation at this point where it's already pointed down at the ground. You will also see people that set up with too much shaft lean and too strong of a grip. This is not bad, but as an example, if your grip is already stronger than this, stronger than neutral, and maybe you have even more shaft lean, you're sort of dynamically setting the face very shut and very hooded, meaning low loft. If you already set up closed with low loft, you can imagine all the compensations you will have to make in this golf swing to get the ball in the air and not overdraw and have flight. What you're going to see in my case, and I see it with a lot of people, is that is actually a little bit too flexed in the wrist, gets a little bit shut at the top, the face is a little bit more to the sky, and not as much in line with my forearm. Face is pointing up to the ceiling. This is too closed. So there's different versions of it, but the more this way and the more this way you are, the more the club is going to have to go this way and out to the left. You're going to get much more on the shallow side of angle of attack because you're trying to create loft, and you're going to be the type of person that tends to really drag the club through impact because the face is so closed that if you released it, it's going to go extremely, like the hook will get much, much worse. So how I would go about fixing that, the easiest thing to start with is you got to make sure your grip is not too strong. Grip changes are a nightmare. They're very uncomfortable. You're very unlikely to commit to it mid-year. But if you are going to work on it, I would suggest getting a grip trainer like this. I believe Scotty Scheffler does this as well, just to keep his grip consistent. I would also set up with less shaft lean for a lot of people. Have the club a little bit more neutral. The second part's a little more tricky because it has more to do with how your wrists are actually moving. So a lot of people are turning the wrist too much into flexion, meaning it's bowing this way, and potentially rotating too much back towards the camera. So if you look at the logo of my glove, the more you can see the logo of my glove, theoretically, the more shut the face is going to be. I've found that this little plastic thing that you can get on Amazon is a pretty good training device because it's helping me set the wrists in a more functional way. So the easiest way to show is if I get the wrist turning and shutting the way I showed you, this thing will actually miss my forearm altogether. If I get the wrist moving a little bit more neutral, it will actually just touch my forearm. And it also helps me not have the club laid off as much at the top. Yeah, so what the main difference, the easiest way to see it, is that now the club face at the top is more in line with the lead forearm, whereas before it was more there. And it really is, this is the catalyst to a lot of things. If you get this right, The club is in a position where you don't have to hold on to it, you don't have to manufacture something. You should be able to just release this normally and find that the face angle is pretty square. So a couple pretty drastic things have changed on the ball flight itself since we changed just the face angle. Nothing else is changing, consciously in the swing. I'm not trying to turn differently. I'm not trying to do different things with the club through impact. I'm just focusing on the relationship of my wrist angles, my grip, and the club face. When I do that, when it gets more neutral, what you notice is the path is way less inside out. It's more down right away. So a lot of people with the shut, kind of hooded face, they can't get their angle of attack 4 or 5 down. I don't take divots. I'm always picking it. This is why. So if the face is shut, you're almost very unlikely to hit down. The loft is not that different, but the relationship of loft and angle of attack are different. So the ball launches lower, spins more. So before we had about a 20-degree launch and 5,500 spin. This is a much more appropriate flight for a 7-iron.